Hey guys, this is the video of Julius Caesar Act 1, Scene 2. I just need you guys to kind of follow along as we're going to go through this act and then, answer some of the Ed puzzle questions that are going to go along with it, okay? So, we left off Act One, Scene One, where there were these two men, Marcellus and Flavius, kind of talking in the streets about Caesar coming to power. Now, still keep that in mind. This is a very brand new thing. Caesar is just coming to power. But in this scene, we're going to have a much larger stage. We're going to have a much larger scene. We're going to see almost every single main character that we've talked about in our character chart. So now might be a really good time to go back and grab your character chart for when you see a name and you might be confused as who they are. Is a really great place to go and look for that information. Okay, so in the sake of time, this scene is very big, so I'm going to split up into two parts. I'm going to split up into Act One, Scene Two, Part One, and then the second half is Part Two. So again, these videos might get a little lengthy for the sake of time. I'm going to try and keep moving. For you guys, have all my annotations already given to you. You can just go read this PDF of all my annotations and kind of get it from there. So my goal is that my annotations alone will get you through it, and these videos are just kind of like icing on the cake. So that's how we're going to go. So let's begin. Act 1, Scene 2. We're looking at a public place. So they're out in public. They're kind of ranting about on this holiday that they have for Caesar. And it says, trumpets sound. Enter Caesar, who was victorious after the war and defeating Pompey, what we talked about. His good friend Mark Antony, Caesar's wife Calpurnia, his friends Marcus Brutus and Marcus Brutus's wife Portia, an untrustworthy person named Cassius, and another untrustworthy person named Casca. Also, there's a great crowd following, and among the crowd is a soothsayer. Now, you guys may have not heard or have ever heard of a soothsayer, what that might actually mean. And a soothsayer, just think of like in a movie where you see the people like they're hooded and they can like predict the future, right? Kind of like the lady in Holes, Madam, I forget her name, but she was kind of like a soothsayer. They can kind of predict the future. And when we see the soothsayer, this is going to introduce the theme that we talked about earlier in the year of fate versus free will. And can you avoid your fate with your free will, or are you kind of destined for a path that you have to follow? So you are going to see the soothsayer in that. And again, that just means like a prophet or fortune teller. Cool. So let's begin. So it starts off by Caesar calling and yelling Calpurnia and her responding graciously but subserviently saying, "Here, my lord." Now, notice how she responds. They put in this tone or these aside notes for a specific reason. She's very gracious and almost subserviently. They say, notice she's like Caesar's servant. She's at his automatically. He yells Calpurnia, and she immediately comes. And then he responds back authoritatively, meaning with power. Stand you directly in Antonius's path when he doth run his race. Antonius, he shouts. And Caesar shouts, and Antony immediately replies, showing that Caesar has a lot of power and he can demand things. That's what we get from when we see authoritatively. He has that power just radiating from him. And Antony comes up with respect, but also humility, says, "Caesar, my lord." And Caesar, again, authoritatively, almost as if he's giving Antonius, or he calls him Antonius, but Antony a command, says, "Forget not in your speed, Antonius, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say the barren touched in this holy chase shake off their sterile curse." Now, all he's saying here is that we've talked about the festival of the Lupercal, that fertility is a very big thing, and being able to have children was a very important thing, especially for Caesar, who was now coming into power. So his wife, Calpurnia, does not have children, so he refers to her as literally the barren wife, which means lifeless. He says a sterile curse, as if she is cursed that she could not have children. And then Antony replies humbly and respectfully, "I shall remember. When Caesar says do this, it is performed." Again, that's relating back to the idea that Caesar's very authoritative. He has a lot of power, and people listen to him when he talks. Okay. So again, he's telling Antony that during the festival of the Lupercal, when you run by Calpurnia, make sure you give her a big hit, or so she can be blessed with fertility. And again, Antony showing his servitude by saying, when Caesar says do this, it is performed. So I have these guided questions, and it says, what does this line suggest about how people react to Caesar's request? What does it suggest about his power? Again, it just suggests that people obey him very quickly and they try and please him. And it says that pretty much his power is strong and effective. So people are willing to listen to him. Out in the crowd, we then get that soothsayer we talked about before, and shouting in an all knowing air, they say, Caesar! And Caesar curiously says, Ha! Who calls my name? Who calls Caesar? And then Casca, who's part of Caesar's army and kind of his entourage, says, Bid every noise be still, peace yet again. So that means everyone quiet down. Who said that? And then Caesar comes out curiously and says, Who is in this press that calls me? I hear a tongue shriller than all the music, cries Caesar. Speak! Caesar is turned to hear. He responds to himself in the third person, which is also kind of showing his power trip. He says, Cry, Caesar! Speak! Because Caesar's now turned to hear. So he uses this like third person dialogue to try and almost put himself above everyone else. It's kind of a very unique way of doing it. And shriller means, higher pitched, very unique. So he says, I hear a tongue more unique than all the music around. I hear something. It calls me. It cries, Caesar. Now speak, because Caesar's now listening. Right? I wouldn't say Mr. Artist is listening. Go talk. Right? It's weird. And the soothsayer then authoritatively and forebodingly says, which basically just means like apply or implying that something bad is going to happen. The soothsayer says, Beware the Ides of March. Now, guys, this is one of the most famous things from this play. You guys have probably seen this before. If you haven't seen it before, you'll definitely see it in the future. Beware the Ides of March is one of the biggest things to come out of Julius Caesar. And the Ides of March just mean the middle. So Ides means right in the middle. So the 15th of March. It says, Beware the 15th of March. Again, remember we talked about the different themes that we've been discussing, fate versus free will. This soothsayer saying, Beware the 15th of March, something is going to happen. You can kind of see this in a little picture here. Caesar demandingly then says, What man is that? Who is this person? Who are they telling me to beware March 15th? And Brutus says evenly, A soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March. Set him before me, let me see his face. Cassius imperiously then says, Fellow, come from the throng. Look upon Caesar. It means come up from the crowd. You soothsayer, come out. Stop hiding behind the people. Come to Caesar and tell him what you just been saying. The guy comes out, and Caesar then looks and demands an explanation. He says, What sayest thou to me now? Speak once again. Eventually, really just meaning, What are you saying? Say it to my face again. I'm listening now. Now you're to my face. And the soothsayer ominously, or kind of scarily, says, Beware the Ides of March. Quickly, Caesar dismisses this, very quickly. He says, He is a dreamer. Let us leave him. And everyone leaves the soothsayer except for Brutus and Cassius. Okay? So the soothsayer comes out. And this is a very small part, but it's a very small character, but a very huge part of the play. Comes out and says, Beware the Ides of March. And he says, Come out here. Who said that? Come say it to me. The crowd quiets. The soothsayer comes out. And the soothsayer says, Again, beware the Ides of March. Now, guys, look at this. They say it twice. They say, Beware the Ides of March up here. And then he says it a second time when Cassius repeats it. And then he says it a third time right to Caesar's face. Now, guys, I don't know if we talked about it this year, but we definitely did last year. When anytime an author repeats something, it normally means it's something important. Any kind of repetition, whether it be in figurative language, whether it be in a book or a speech, right? Martin Luther King, I had a dream, or I have a dream where he repeats it, right? There are very important times in our country, in our literature, in our world, where if there is something important, they're more than likely going to put it just more than once. So again, beware the Ides of March, beware the Ides of March, beware the Ides of March. It's almost like Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. You say it three times, something's going to happen. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go. So Caesar dismisses it because he brushes him off. He thinks, I'm Caesar. I'm the great Greek. I'm the great Roman emperor. Why do I have to worry about anything? I'm the Roman king. But screw this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't have to worry about anything. He brushes off the soothsayer, acts like nothing is wrong, and he continues on his journey. So imagine now that big group of characters that were just there now leave, and there's only two people left. And the two people left are going to be Marcus Brutus and Cassius. Now, something you guys have to figure out is, this is a tragedy. Something does happen to Caesar, but you're also going to see a huge character development in Brutus. It's called the tragedy of Julius Caesar, but also what we're going to see happen to Brutus is also a tragedy, right? We're going to see some character arc with him. Not only that, but Cassius is also one of the main conspirators, or just someone who's doing something wrong towards Othello, or I keep mixing up with Othello, wrong towards Julius Caesar. So Cassius is also going to be one of the main antagonists, or I would almost want to say bad guys. I mean, if you were to say that there is a villain, okay. So we read Othello last year. Iago was kind of like the most villainous person in there. Cassius is going to take that role right here in Julius Caesar. So they remain as everyone else heads towards the festival of the Lupercal. Cassius then curiously goes over there and says to Brutus, "Are you going to see the race today?" Just kind of making small talk. And Brutus somberly says, "No, I'm not gamesome. Let me not hinder, Cassius, your desires. I'll leave you." Meaning, "No, I'm not really into that. I'm going to let you do your own thing, though. I'll leave you. Have a good day." And Cassius, as Brutus tries to leave, says in a kind of like a hurt tone, he's kind of upset, and says, "Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I want to have. You bear too stubborn and too strange a hand over your friend that loves you." And essentially, Cassius is just saying, "Yo, man, WTF. Brutus, I'm trying to talk to you. You just going to leave me? I've noticed recently that you haven't been showing me any love. We're good friends. I like you, you like me, but recently you've been kind of like pushing people away. What's with you recently?" And it says Brutus says in a confiding tone, meaning he's talking to Cassius like he trusts him and that he's looking for some sympathy. And he says, "Cassius, be not deceived. I have not veiled my look. I turn the trouble of my continuance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, conceptions only proper to myself, which give some soil perhaps to my behaviors. But let not therefore my good friends be grieved, among which number, Cassius, be you one. Nor construe any further my neglect, that then the poor Brutus with himself at war forgets the show of love to another man." And guys, don't think love to another man is like some like other thing that it's not. It's not two dudes making love to each other. He's just saying like friendship. All right. I know how you guys think sometimes. So really what you guys have to take out of this whole response is it sounds really complicated when Shakespeare says it, but when Mr. Artist kind of summarizes it, it's a lot easier to understand. In response, he's pretty much saying, "You know what? Again, I've been off. I've been a little preoccupied. Don't feel bad about it. Like, don't think I don't like you. Don't think anything is wrong with me. I'm just kind of have some stuff going on in my own self." And Cassius says, "Oh no, I don't want you to think I'm thinking that, you know." And he says, "Then Brutus, I have much mistook your passion, by means whereof this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value, worthy cogitations. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? Can you see your face?" And Brutus gets very serious and he says, "No, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection by some other things." Okay? So he's saying, I can't see myself, but I can see myself in my actions. And I can see myself in the things that I leave behind. And if I'm being mean to you, what does that say about me? Right? And it says, "Can you see your face?" That's an important line. And this is an important quote, and it's going to be on a quiz, possibly, just possibly. Brutus says, "For the eye sees not itself, but by reflection by some other things." And in response to that, Cassius is going to say in a very sorrowful voice, "'Tis just, and is very much laminated, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you may not see your shadow, I have heard, where many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus." Sorry, I gotta scroll up, my computer's a little laggy. "And groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished the noble Brutus had his eye." Okay? So Cassius is saying, don't get it twisted, man. You're honorable. You might not feel good right now. You might be preoccupied with stuff. People might not see it, but you're a good dude. Everyone thinks so. And in fact, you are so good that a lot of people would rather see you in power than Julius Caesar himself. Think about that. A lot of people would rather see you in power than Julius Caesar himself. Now think about this. What does that suggest? What does it show Cassius is doing? What you're going to see is he's trying to manipulate Brutus. He's trying to plant little seeds of doubt. He's trying to plant little seeds to get him to think a certain way. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to say, man, everyone thinks you're great. Everyone thinks you're super. In fact, a lot of people said that they think you're better than Julius Caesar. What do you think about that? Right? And essentially, Brutus just kind of says, like, he hears that and he's like, wait a second. Like, what are you getting at? Like, why are you telling me this? And he says, into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek into myself for which not is in me? Like, Cassius, I'm not thinking of Brutus as me. I'm not thinking on my own that I should take that I should be overpowered more than Caesar. I'm not coming up with that idea. Why are you trying to tell me these ideas to get these horrible things in my head? Because for me to get power, what would happen to Caesar? He would have to be, as we'll say, exterminated. He'd have to die. So Brutus is really just kind of saying, why are you putting these horrible things in my head? What's your point? What are you getting at? And right here in blue, guys, I just wanted to put some key facts and some of the underlying meaning. So if you don't understand anything else on this page, what I need you to understand is that Cassius is really trying to manipulate Brutus to build up a dislike towards Caesar. He's trying to get Cassius, or he's trying to get Brutus to not like Caesar anymore because we know that Cassius doesn't like Caesar. He's telling him that everyone in Rome thinks that he's an honorable man, but Caesar has said otherwise, and that Brutus really should be the one in power right now. The people want it. And if there's one thing we know about Brutus is that he is very honorable and will always do what is best for the man or mankind and not necessarily what is best for himself. Okay? Not necessarily as if it's best for himself. Cassius says some cunning stuff here, just trying to like lean more into the idea that Brutus should have power and not Caesar. And then if you guys look down below, I have some vocabulary. So some of these words you may have not have heard before, like contuents, hinder, vexed, cogitations, lamented, like all these words you guys may not know. I put a little dictionary at the bottom so you guys can kind of follow along. All right. And we're just going to read up to this part right here. We are almost done. But Brutus responds anxiously because if you see at the top, it says shouting is heard in the distance. Brutus and Cassius continue to discuss the future of Rome. Okay, shouting is heard in the distance. You got to imagine this is a play. So you're hearing people cheering, woo! And Brutus anxiously comes in and says, what means is this shouting? I do fear the people chose Caesar for the king. This is the first time Brutus is going to admit that he does not want to see Caesar as the king because he does not believe that it is best for the people. So he says, what means is this shouting? He says, I do fear, that is the key word. I do fear the people chose Caesar for their king. So if I were to ask you guys on a quiz, does Cassius' little manipulation plan, do his seeds of doubt, do they work on Brutus? He just planted them, and already you're seeing Brutus say anxiously and in a nervous tone, why are people shouting? Oh my God, did they make Caesar king already? Did this already happen? And Cassius quickly says afterwards, says, do you fear it? Then must I think you would not have it so. And in response, and we're going to end here, Brutus just says contemplatively, meaning contemplating. He's not really sure. And he goes, I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? What is it that you would impart to me? If it ought to be toward the general good, set honor in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently, he says. He says, for let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. For let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. He is saying that he puts what is the good for Rome, what is the best opportunity for Rome, over his fear and his uh, his his nervousness of death. Okay, he's saying I would rather see the good of Rome and risk my life rather than seeing or rather than seeing Julius Caesar in power. So now that we can see this plan has rooted quickly, those roots are spreading through Brutus. These roots of I need to do what's best for mankind. And he even says it. He does like Caesar. He says, I love him well. I would not, Cassius. I wouldn't think of doing it because I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? What is it that you would impart into me? If it ought to be good, if it ought to be toward the general good, set honor in one eye and death in the other. If what you're telling me is for the good of Rome, then let me see death. I will take it because I want what is best for the people. And that really just gives uh, an insight as to the values and the character that Brutus has, right? It shows us deep down that he really does want the best for Rome, even if he does not necessarily agree with it. Doesn't agree with what Cash is saying. I don't want to exterminate or maybe kill Caesar, but if that's what everybody else wants, then damn it to hell, I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay? And that's where we're leaving off. We're leaving off with this conversation between two characters. You have to remember these two characters are on a stage right now, and they're telling the audience a lot of information that you would not necessarily know if you were a character in the story. Okay? So again, this is what we call dramatic irony. We'll have a little bit more in detail lesson about what dramatic irony is, but we're learning things about the characters that the other characters in the play do not. The audience knows something that the other characters do not, which would classify this as some dramatic irony. Okay, you see it all the time in plays and movies. This is what we're talking about. All right. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Tomorrow in class, you guys are, or I guess today in class, you guys are going to watch this Ed puzzle. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to make my illustration because I'm a visual learner. So I'm going to draw this scene out for you like we do for all the scenes. And then we'll continue on with Act 1, Scene 2 as we go. So thanks for sticking around. I hope this was helpful. Let me know what I can fix and change for future classes, and we'll go from there.